Alright, so this was the second day out with the drone. I started out in the self-made man courtyard. Had a bit of a hard time taking off because the grass was quite tall and, well, the blades kept getting stuck and I just didn't like it. So I ended up having to like hold it and then just take off from my hand. And eventually I ended up getting a reasonable hover. There we go. So this courtyard is named for that statue. You can find a better picture of it on the school's website. And once I was hovering and it stabilized, I started to go towards Belt Courtyard. And this was my first time flying in an area where other people were around, and I was a little bit on edge, but steady hands. So as you can see, there's several people walking past, so I just sort of raised the drone up above head height and just sort of parked it in a hover so I could let the people pass, and then I was going to go under that archway. So this is some of the math and science buildings here. Through that path to the right, that leads to Belt Courtyard, and I'm going to make that turn shortly after these people pass. So this here is Belk Tower. They recently announced that they're going to be demolishing this structure, unfortunately, so I decided I'd get some footage of it while it was still here. It's a big landmark on campus. It's probably the most prominent feature of the whole campus, and it's going to be gone. I don't know what they're going to do with the space after that, but there we go. I decided I'd land on the pedestal thing next to it. Textbook. So now I'm just sort of reorienting myself, getting my bearings again, and now we're going to go off to the left towards South Village. if you can see all this lurching up and down that the camera's doing, that's from where the drone is stopping and starting, because like the way a quadcopter works, it moves forward by tilting, and basically how you can counteract that, if you go into the control settings of the Parrot app and you set a maximum tilt angle. I have it at 10 degrees for most of this, but later on you'll see I bring it down to 5 degrees, which means we move slower, but the camera's a lot more smooth and it doesn't jerk, like lurches quite as much. And here I'm flying through quite a narrow sort of breezeway, so I'm being a bit more careful. It's right after I make this left turn that the low battery alarm comes on, and well, I have to change the batteries, so I just end up landing on the ramp and then changing batteries. After I changed the battery, I actually continued down this way towards South Village, but because I switched the battery, I actually forgot to start recording again after I was flying, so unfortunately I don't have that footage. But this video is already long enough as it is, and I will be sure to record that area of campus the next time I fly. So actually, on the way back from Sovi, I was just carrying the drone on my backpack. I actually ran into another group of guys who also had a drone. They had a DJI Phantom, which is a good bit more expensive than this drone. But they were filming various lakes and stuff on campus, and I thought that was pretty cool that, what are the odds? So once I made it back to Belk Courtyard, I started flying again, this time towards the Student Union. And it was around here that I attracted the attention of several small children, because flying things that make funny noises are quite enamoring to small children. That wouldn't be so bad. I decided to sort of stop and showboat just a little bit, but my battery started running low shortly after this, and with remote controlled aircraft, you get unexpected behavior sometimes when your battery runs low. I mean, if you see, the children are getting quite close, so I'm slightly uneasy, and I try to keep it up out of their reach so they don't get their fingers buzzed. I had actually flown from where you saw me change the battery all the way out to Sovi, and then I carried it back to here, so that's why it was already running low. But I mean, this part was fine. It was up ahead that it starts acting a little squirrely, and then the low battery alarm went off. So it was this series of events here. The children were sort of gathered around, and the drone wigged out for a second and hit the ground and then took back off, and I had a heart palpitation when that happened. I was like, oh no. Fortunately though, it was just the low battery, and after I changed the battery it was much more stable. So coming up here ahead, we have the Smith building on the left. That's where first year engineering 1201 is taught. And then on the right side, that's the Prospector building, which has Chick-fil-A and the post office in it. And it's about here that I start getting the low battery alarm. And, you know, I tried to like hit the landing button, but, you know, I brought up like a menu on the tablet, and, you know, I was sort of still panicking slightly from, like, you know, the event with the children. But, you know, I did manage to land it somewhat safely. There we go. And so it was here that I changed the battery, and then we're just going to take off again and go to the left. There, that was the hull coming off, and then I changed the battery. And now I'm just carrying it back to the bricks so that we get a level surface to take off from, because this drone has some sensitive gyroscopes in it, and it's helpful to have a level surface so you can sort of trim it. So now that's done. I take off. And now I'm just sort of waiting for the drone to like become stable again, just making sure that the flight issues were caused by the low battery, and, you know, making sure it's not going to do that again. So right now I'm just sort of, you know, dancing around a little, just making sure the controls are still fine, making sure it's not going to drop unexpectedly. And it's around this time that I go into the settings and take the max tilt angle down to 5 degrees so that we can get a nice slow flight and a nice sort of smooth camera feed. There. See, it's moving a lot slower, but also the camera isn't tilting nearly as much so that we get smoother footage. This area of campus is a lot sort of more densely crowded, so, you know, I decided just to take it slow and safe. We got the library here on the left. Actually, I had a friend of mine call out to me as I was walking past. You know, told me to watch out. I thought he scared me for a second, but, you know, there was nothing. He was just messing with me. At this point, I'm flying the drone maybe about 10 feet ahead of me, just walking behind it, making sure I don't crash into trees or anything. This drone can go pretty far. I've gotten it out to about, I'd say 150 feet or so before I lose signal connection. Plus, this drone is capable of a lot more than I put it through today. I mean, you can go into the settings and put limits on it, like the tilt angle, for instance, and like speed limits, vertical speed limits, and rotational speed limits. So, I mean, you can take it as high, like, within reason, as high as you want. Like, you could go as far as 30-degree tilt, which means if you put the joystick forward, it'll lurch, like, almost at a 45-degree angle, and just zoom off really, really fast, and probably crash into the ground if you're not careful. So in this drone, it'll do a lot when you need it to. So up ahead we have the Student Activity Center with the clock tower. That's another one of the more prominent landmarks on campus. With the, call it the echo circle, the sort of mosaic pattern thing with the compass rose on the ground. when I was hovering in that area, a guy that was walking past said I should like put the drone in the middle of the circle and then it'll be louder, because it sort of makes you louder if you stand there and talk. I did try it briefly, but it didn't really make any noticeable difference, probably because the drone has sounds on a whole bunch of different frequencies, because that's how motors work. And it was just too much noise to make an appreciable difference for the drone, at least. So here we are, I'm panning around. That's the College of Health and Human Services. Over that way is the Cone Center and the library again. And now we're just going to go down the stairs. The first version of this drone, the AR Drone 1.0, it measured its altitude using ultrasonic sensors, which means that if I were to take it over a set of steps like this, it would sort of follow the slope of the steps downward. But the AR Drone 2.0 actually has a pressure sensor as well as the ultrasonic, which means if I have it at a certain height and then fly it over some stairs, it'll actually stay level and not follow the slope of the stairs downwards. So that's pretty handy. And it was about here that I had a guy approach me with a big old grin on his face, and he asked me what it was that I was flying. I told him it was called a drone or a quadcopter, and I showed him how the controls work, and I showed him how the video feed works, and I told him that I was recording video of like the student union in the sort of central areas of campus. And then after he left, I started thinking about how am I going to get the drone like over this next set of steps without like having eye contact with it, because it's quite a compact space, and I was thinking I could just sort of fly over that ledge and just catch up with it. But I was really nervous to do that because it's quite high up, and I didn't want to take any unnecessary risks. So the other guys walked away at this point, and I'm sort of slowly approaching the stairs, trying to think of how am I going to do this, because I'm sort of looking. I could just fly it over that ledge, like straight down the middle, and just sort of go down the stairs and catch up with it, but that would probably put me out of line of sight and be quite sort of dangerous. So I took it down a bit, and then I thought I'll fly it like over the edge so I can see it and then go down the stairs. But I started going down the stairs there and then said, okay, I'll just move the drone to where I can see it. But of course it was on 5 degrees tilt, so it didn't move very fast at all, and I got nervous and came back up the stairs. It was at this point that I pretty much just said, okay, fine, and I took it down the stairs like in front of me so I could actually see it. But of course these stairs are quite confined spaces. In hindsight, it would have been smarter to fly it like higher up and then just face it towards the Union and just strafe. But hey, you live and you learn. I had some pretty close calls with that, with the walls on the sides of these stairs, but I made it out all right. I didn't actually crash into anything. I trimmed some leaves off of trees once or twice, but nothing that caused any sort of flight abnormality. So at this point, I'm pretty much clear of the stairs, and I just start going forwards and heading towards the Union. If you can see how wobbly the footage is, especially during low or slow movements like this, I'm pretty sure that's because one of my propeller shafts is slightly bent and it causes a lot of excess vibration. But I've got extra shafts on order and I'll be replacing that soon. So that should be alleviated to some extent at some point. So at this point, I'm pretty like the drone, even at 5-degree tilt maximum, it still flies quite a bit faster than I can sort of leisurely walk. So I just stopped so I could catch up to it again because I didn't want it to get too far away when people were around. At this point, I just stopped so I could do a pan, get a view of the College of Health and Human Services and Student Activity Center. I'm not sure what that building is because I've never been in there. But at this point, I'm going to cross the street when the walk sign's all right. I know I could just fly the quadcopter over the street at any time, but I figured it was safer to wait until I could walk across the street to fly across. So here we've got people setting up for some kind of event going on tonight. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but I'm busy editing. I don't want to go. So at this point, I'm trying to, they had the front stairs blocked off. My original plan was just to come straight up the middle, but I ended up having to go around the side, and I was thinking, can I make it down these stairs? But they had a table there too, so I couldn't walk that way. And I ended up just going around the side, through the grass to the back. It was about here that I ran into the same family of, with the children. There he is again. And, this time I had, 3/4 of a battery, so I was sort of more confident that I wouldn't have any control issues this time. Fortunately, they were going the other way, so I only met them in passing. So up here, this is the back of the student union, and then off to the left, off to the right, that leads down to the Lynch Hall and the courtyard within. About here, I had a guy like chase after the drone as if he was going to grab it, so I sort of, you know, took it up higher and pulled it back towards me because I wasn't sure of his intents, and then he laughed. So, you know, I just sort of took off down the pathway. Again, this was a bit of a difficult thing to do because it's a big, long pathway, and even at the slowest speed, the drone is still faster than I sort of am willing to walk. So, you know, I had to pause quite frequently and strafe back and forth, make sure I didn't hit any trees. At this point, I was on my last battery, and it was starting to run low, so again, I have performance issues where it's bobbing around quite strangely. And as I go through the tunnel up ahead, I get the low battery alarm, and that pretty much means I'm done flying because I've only got 3 batteries. And I'm done.